Hey everybody, Scorpion here. Um, guess we'll call this doing a little micro scrapping. Different odds and ends, and I've got some other stuff. See how long the video goes as to whether I get into some of the other stuff or not. But we'll do a little micro scrapping today. Y'all stay tuned. See if we can have some fun.
Rock bottle on the track, boy.
Alright, so some pieces and junk I have laying around. Wonder if I get lucky, maybe I'll be right. Uh-oh. So of course this is a drive out of the computer right here. Just trying to get the motor off of it. I got a feeling they might give me a hard time about tossing too much metal in with motors. And of course that all depends. I may end up pulling a bunch of those motors apart and taking the other stuff. So that's shred, scrap, whatever you want to call it. I just say scrap. So let's see. Get something a little bit bigger. So I mean that's the motor. I don't know if y'all can see just inside right here the copper windings in it. I don't see any reason why I would have to take this off. As far as I'm concerned, it's just motor. So I guess I'll find out when I go. So this stuff is thermostats and switches and stuff like that that I've picked up from a few different places. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a thermostat. There it goes. So you can see we got some copper in here. I believe it's brass underneath. I don't know if y'all know it. Let's see if we can get this off and I'll show it to you. Everything's pop riveted together, so that means I'm just going to have to break it off. Whatever, no big deal. I'll be the first. Let's see how easy it comes apart. I can show y'all like this. So your average thermostat, it carries the power up here. It's got a base that sets on down here in the bottom, that pin it sets on. But if your thermostat, if you look at this side and then look at that side, what the metal is made out of is two different things. Normally they're a laminated sheet, and this is the old thermostats. So as it heats up, one side expands faster than the other, and it makes your switch click and connect to turn on your unit or whatever. When you adjust it, you know, when it goes the other way, one side expands faster than the other and it makes it open back up. That's really all the old thermostats were, was two different types of metal put together so the switch would bend as it heats up and cools down to cause it to turn on and turn off, because you know, no two types of metals actually do the same thing. I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up having to use a drill to cut these pop rivets out and get all this stuff off of this one. But I figured I'd share that information on a thermostat for you. It's normally how they work. And when you make your adjustment, is by turning the screw down here, and that's how far it gets to go before. Just a little information. These look like they're pretty much the same way. Turn the unit on and off. You see your contacts here are brass. This is copper. This piece is brass. So I'll take this apart. I may just beat it with a hammer and break all the plastic up. All these pretty much look the same. This little phone jack I took off the laptop last video or two. Must be like that, huh? Let's see here. So I'm trying to get smarter with some of this stuff. I am famous for stabbing myself with a screwdriver. I don't know why I enjoy it so much, but I will stab myself and put a hole halfway through my hand. Or cut myself on a piece of metal. I absolutely despise gloves unless it's something big, so that's scrap. I don't know if y'all can see those two pins in there any better yet or not. Well, this is me relaxing a little, seeing what I can get out of what. Now it's open a lot more. See that gold, them two gold pins there? I don't get in a rush. I don't do this for a living. So I have the luxury of taking my time. Trying to get those few extra pieces of gold out. The ones that are in it for, you know, the faster money don't normally sit around and play with the little stuff like this. I mean, that's not a small pin. Pretty good amount of length to it. So this is some type of switch, on-off switch. I've already cut the wires out of it. It looked like it was a seatbelt thing. I'm gonna tell y'all this, if you're gonna scrap stuff, something like this comes in handy. It's got all those special screws and the safety screws and all that other stuff. Because inevitably, if you don't have it, you're going to find something. And a lot of stuff has it in there. Microwaves, hard drives. Let's see what's in here. A lot of your switches have silver on the contacts. So a lot of times I just cut them out, drop them aside. You can take them and drop them over in, I think it's muriatic acid, and it'll eat the metal up and put it all in solution, and then you have to separate it out later. But if you don't know what you're doing, you have to be careful. I've researched some of it, but I'm not done researching it yet, and I don't have enough stuff piled up to make it worth my while to do it. I mean, if I'm going to do it, I'd like to at least get a couple ounces out of it. Piece of a light bulb. I can probably go in the trash. Probably need to take a break and clean my scrapping room up. It's all full of all kinds of stuff. I'm going to have to remove one. I might as well remove them both. So here's what's inside of there. It's your switch. You got a little bit more wire. So something that thick I can run through my electric wire stripper. You start getting down to this size, well, it's a little bit different. It doesn't like to strip the small stuff. Alright, come on. So a lot of these have a little release that you have to squeeze to make them come off without trying to kill yourself there. So a lot of these pins right here, you can see them, they're brass. You can always cut those off if you want. We're going to break this little switch open and see what's inside. Most of the time these are brass. All your plug-ins and cords, they're brass. So I tend to take these and just cut them off. And this is wire. You put that with the wire. Let's see what the inside of this bad boy looks like. There it goes. So you can see your connectors inside where they go through. Depending on what it's in, sometimes you want to pull it off, sometimes you want to push it through. Sometimes you want to cut them. Those take quite a bit of force. They're good. A lot of people don't know that there's more than one type of brass. Well, they're just going to be as difficult as possible. So most people don't take the time for the little stuff, and I understand why. I mean, if you're trying to make a living, you don't have 30 minutes to play with a plug, you know. But I do have the time. So this thing is set up with 2 contacts. Contacts actually look, yeah, they're gonna be brass. I do believe might be just a little tip of silver right there on the end if you can see it. So there's 2 of those. Honestly, I'll probably just throw that in with the brass. I opened it up more so because I was interested just to see what it was. It's got 2 little balls in there. They're going to be steel. So yeah, so there's pieces out of a switch, just to give you some idea of what is or isn't in some of that stuff. So let's see what else we can find to tear up here. Alright, so computer or any type of power supply for anything, any electronic, they all pretty much look about the same. Some are bigger than others. Some are smaller, but they all kind of work off the same basis. When you take all the plastic off of them, this is what you're left with if you left the wires on. Some people will clip the wires at the box, take the wires for wire. Some people will open them and cut them off as close as they can, and some people just leave them together. Again, it's a preference. It's how much time you have. If you take power supplies with the wires on them and they're closed in a box and still in a plastic box, Board Sort takes those, and you make pretty good money for them. But if you want all the money you can get out of it, then you want to tear it down, take it all apart, and you make extra money that way. But when you average your time versus the money, you're making less per hour. So do you want all the money out of it, or do you want to keep your average up where you're making $20 an hour or something like that scrapping, as opposed to if you tear it all apart, you're looking at $4 or $5 an hour because it takes so much time. So that's kind of the things you have to look at when you're scrapping. I used to take all these apart and tear them all down. If you're interested in finding out more information just on the power supplies, I believe Shark Scrapper, if I'm not mistaken, did a video on them. He did a spreadsheet breakdown of what you're making per hour at which step of it. He does some really good stuff, and you know, Shark Scrapper is about, you know, what's my pay per hour. Not about can I get every dime out of this that I can. But he's got a really good channel. I enjoy watching him. He is one of the scrappers that I do watch. He does a lot of spreadsheets and teaching and showing you and all that great stuff. So if you're interested in checking that out, that's Shark Scrapper. He's in the northeastern part of Florida. I tried to meet him while I was out there, but it didn't work out. It's too much other stuff that had to be handled and done. So I did go see Gulf Coast Scrapper. He was pretty cool. We got to tear some stuff apart and hang out a little bit. So if you don't have either one of those people, go check them out. So you can cut this off and get all that wire out or whatever. It's kind of like a type of metal. It gets kind of dangerous cutting those off. You end up getting your fingers. So I've come to a realization that I'll just do that and drop that in the scrap, and let the wires be a little bit of wire go in there. It's really not worth me jabbing myself all the way through my finger for. Of course, you probably could put a torch on it and melt it, but I'm going to tell y'all again, melting plastics and wire is illegal, so don't do it. So I just opt the easy way on that, so I don't have to worry about it. I haven't stuck too many holes in my hand and finger as it is. I do like to cut the ties off. So again, there's the switch. What's in it? Probably silver. Am I going to take it apart? Doesn't look too complicated, but nah. Don't feel like fooling with it. The switches that I like to take apart are, you know, the bigger stuff, where you actually get a decent amount out of there. I don't want to spend 30 minutes to get a gram of silver when I could spend 30 minutes, you know, on something else and make a lot more money. So these wires, I always cut them down as close as I can. Now don't get me wrong, I don't normally scrap these out like this. I used to, until I saw Shark Scrapper's video, and I was like, ooh. It was either Shark Scrapper or somebody. I'm pretty sure it was Shark Scrapper. So I quit scrapping them out like this. So I'm doing this for two reasons, and I've got a bunch more I'm going to scrap out like this. Number one reason, this is the way I got this one. Or I'd already taken some apart too. So computer shop that I go to, sometimes they go into them and get stuff out, and you know, to salvage for something else. So it's not worth me trying to piece stuff back together and waste time that way and try to figure out what they stole. Now that's actually a pretty decent amount of wire. So I'll finish cleaning that up in a minute. So there's other things on here you can get to. If I'm going to scrap these out, I'm going to scrap them out completely. I'm not going to just cut the wire off and stop at that, or take the aluminum heat sinks off and stop at that. You got copper spools here. You got copper spools here. You got aluminum heat sinks. You got IC chips that you can get. Those are probably going to be the main things. There's another little bit of copper here. That's probably one too. It's just coated. These things have a pretty good amount of weight to them. But yeah, so these things, all of these can pass as motor. You can toss them in with motors, or you can take the copper off. So if I scratch it and it's aluminum wire, I'm going to toss it in with the motors. These right here have a pretty good amount of weight to them, but the wire is so fine, it's really not that much on there because they're in between layers of plastic, these transformers, so I just throw them in with motors. These things here, you have to take a screw out of them before you can get the heat sink off. Well, if you take these off the board, you can smash them a couple times with a hammer. That goes as number 2 copper. It's you know, same thing as these over here. I've taken off some of the other boards. So if you're pulling the aluminum heatsink off, you might as well grab those as well. Most of this stuff is reasonably easy to get off. It's more of a space issue on the board that makes stuff hard to get it off. If you're scrapping the whole board out, then it doesn't really matter if you tear the board up some. I mean, you don't want to completely abolish it, but again, some of this stuff, I mean, most of it's not going to hurt you. There is a few nasty things that you want to look out for, and you'll learn those pretty quick. But most of these boxes, they're relays. So power goes in, and basically they work by magnetic field. But power will go in at one spot, completes the circuit at another spot. But when you put power on that spool of wire in there, it creates a magnetic field, and it pulls that piece of metal to it and closes that contact. And of course the contacts have silver, so I do like those. They're normally pretty easy. Yeah. Your little IC chips here, they pop right off. Just takes a little bit of persuasion. Most times just twisting them works the best. And if they're really big, sometimes you got to run a screwdriver underneath them, but so this here is number 2 copper. Once I smash it a couple times with the hammer, oh, come on, turn it loose. There it goes. Most times twisting takes about anything off, so it just takes a little bit more than others. And sometimes they just want to be hateful and break all the pieces, but I created some room so I could get underneath it. So this stuff, as you can tell, it's some type of ferrous material. They kind of feel like a magnet, but they're not actually a magnet. So, I mean, they can go in with a scrap. You just have to check your wire first, see if it's cheap aluminum or they put a little money in it and left copper on there. All these things are capacitors. Capacitors, their main purpose is to store energy. That's why when you turn an electronic off sometime, I'm sorry, capacitors, there we go. These two, gives you some big ones to look at, or bigger. When you turn an electronic off, it takes a little while for the power to completely go away. That's why. The capacitors, you have to wait for them to discharge for all that power to go away. Oh, it's just going to pop off there. Not exactly what I want to do, but that's fine. They can go in shred. So to get the heat sinks, the aluminum heat sinks off, as I said, you gotta take the screw out of that because it's screwed together. Sometimes you can get them off with it on there, but it's a lot easier if you get rid of that thing because they are a pain. So that's released. So these things heat up. So they screw them to aluminum to help disperse the heat into the aluminum, and then it gets rid of it up here. It keeps these from burning up. That's the reason for heat sinks and stuff. Let's see if I can reach in here and get this. Alright, so now we're dealing with the aluminum heat sink. A lot of times you can just get up underneath them with a screwdriver and pop them right out the board. Now, they're attached to the board with steel. That's not aluminum. So you do have to grab that stuff and take it off. Some of them are steel pieces like this. Some of them are steel rods that run down in the little cracks inside of them. Those can get to be a pain to pull out sometimes. But now you've got some aluminum. That's pretty much it on the board. On the power supply boards, I don't see much of anything else. So I'll finish depopulating the ICs, the little chips, the aluminum, the other, I don't remember the name of those, this spool of wire, and these two things. And when you get to pulling these off, quite often you bust the board because it's got a bunch of little wires going through most of the time. But I guess that's about it. I held y'all up enough. Hope y'all enjoyed, and we'll see y'all in the next video. Alright, so if you're still here, you got two aluminum heat sinks. This is a grease. It helps transfer heat. All that white nasty stuff. I normally wipe that stuff off of there, especially if I'm going to melt it. I don't particularly want to breathe that stuff. Here's all your stuff you can throw in with copper motors, or with motors. It's a pretty good amount of weight there, to be honest with you. But of course the copper wire gives you more money. I mean, motors are what, 20 cents a pound or something. Copper's $3 and something a pound. So it just depends. This stuff you can throw in with your shred because it's a metal-like material. Shoe brass off that other thing. I did pull that off. I'll bust. That may not be what I thought it was. I'll find out here in a second. That's what's left on the board after I stripped all that stuff off of it. Not much left, not a whole lot of weight left. But you know, it's worth a little something, so I just toss it with the rest and move on to the next one. So if y'all want to see what's in this, let's see if we can pop this thing open and find out. Yeah, so that's not what I thought it was. I'm actually not sure. Hold on, let's see. 205 volt. Yeah, so that's going to be a capacitor. If y'all can see, it's got silver shiny stuff in here. So capacitor, it comes in on one side, it goes out on the other side, and it stores in between. It's got foils and different things in it. So again, shred, no big deal. So, alright. Oh yeah, and there was 4 IC chips on there. So, thank y'all for watching. We'll see you next time.